After what seemed like an eternity, WrestleMania has finally come to an end, and your boy, Derek J407, is here to talk to all of you about it. Boy, you know what? I can't even really do that because overall I thought it was a good show. I did think overall, top to bottom, for as long as the show was and as many things that happened, and a lot happened, I didn't see a bad WrestleMania tonight. I would give it a thumbs up. A little hesitant. It's a little crooked going up, but I would give this show a thumbs up. I know it's very easy, especially with WrestleMania, to point at a lot of the bad stuff and things like that, but let's look at this. We had 3 big championship matches on the show where we had potential happy endings, and not many people thought all 3 of them were going to end with happily ever after, and all 3 did. We have a new Universal Champion, a new WWE Champion, and a new Raw and SmackDown Women's Champion. So that alone, it makes for a good show. We saw a few other really good matches, a really good Falls Count Anywhere match. We saw some nostalgia with the Doctor of Thugonomics, John Cena. We saw the same nostalgia with Triple H and Batista with some sick stuff going on in that match. There was a few other really fun things on the show. So overall, I can't say it was bad, but yet I come out of this show feeling like something was missing, or it just didn't go down the way I would have preferred it to, especially the main event. The ending to that main event was, oh boy. But like I said, I did like the show, so we're gonna go through this whole long 7.5 hour show. I predicted it 2 months ago that this was gonna go 7.5 hours, and it did that. About 16 matches, 2 hour pre-show. Main show was about 5.5 hours, so yeah, very long show. How I'm still alive to do this, I have no idea, but I'm gonna do the best I can. So we're gonna start things off going all the way back to the kickoff show. We started things off with the Cruiserweight Championship match. Buddy Murphy defending the title against Tony Nese in what turned out to be a really good match. The crowd was not completely full yet, so there wasn't a whole lot of people in the building for it, but as people started to pack in, the people started to get more into it. We saw Murphy hit his Murphy's Law finisher, but Tony Nese got a foot on the rope, so he managed to get out of it, and eventually he hit the running Nese, which is a running knee into the corner, and got the win. So basically a hometown boy in Tony Nese, he gets the big win. Of course, WrestleMania taking place in MetLife Stadium in the shadow of New York City, because the disrespect to New Jersey is real, and I'm all for it. But yeah, so Tony Nese gets the big win. We had the WrestleMania Women's Battle Royal. I'm not going to go through everybody who was in this match. 2 standouts from NXT. We had Kairi Sane and Candice LeRae, so that was cool. And we got a return of Ember Moon, so that was kind of cool. Even though she was kind of wasted in this match, she got eliminated by Lana, so that wasn't really all that exciting. Things came down to Asuka, Sonya Deville, and Sarah Logan, of all people. Asuka managed to dump out Sonya, but Sarah Logan eliminated Asuka, which did not sit well with a whole lot of people. But it was all for show. Sarah Logan did not win because Carmella, who was in this match, she was not yet eliminated, and she was on the outside, so she got back in, gave Logan a super kick to kick her out of the ring. So Carmella, another hometown person, got the win. So good for her. Speaking of hometown wins, that leads us to this next pre-show match. We had the Raw Tag Team titles on the line. The Revival, Dash Wilder and Scott Dawson, defending against Kurt Hawkins and Zack Ryder. Hawkins and Ryder looking to end their losing streak, especially for Hawkins, and they did just that. Hawkins got hit with some big move by, I believe it was Dawson on the outside, and he was just limp. His body was down. Dawson gets him back in the ring. He's kind of taunting him and playing to the crowd and stuff. He goes to go after him, but then Hawkins gets him up for a schoolboy and gets the win. So Hawkins and Ryder walk out of WrestleMania as the new Raw Tag Team Champions in a match that was only made after Raw the previous week on the YouTube channel. So there you go. It was a pretty obvious finish. They don't care about the revival. And shame on you for thinking they did. And then the last match of the kickoff, the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. A bunch of people who you don't care about, the Hardy Boys, and Braun Strowman. And yes, I'm including Colin Jost and Michael Che from Weekend Update on SNL in the category of people you don't care about. But to be fair, Colin Jost did pop me when he came out with an Odell Beckham Jr. jersey, a Cleveland Browns Odell Beckham Jr. jersey, and that was pretty funny. Why New Jersey would care, I don't know, but it was still funny. So early on, they hid under the ring, so they were a non-factor in the majority of the match. But during the match, we saw a very scary spot. Luke Harper was over the top rope on the ring apron. Either that or it was something like that. But he had Mustafa Ali, up in position for a suplex, and it looked like he was about to suplex him out of the ring. And when Braun Strowman came over, he kicked Luke Harper in the gut, and both he and Ali came tumbling to the ground. But when Ali landed, he basically got suplexed. But when he landed, his body kind of positioned, and he ended up smacking the edge of the announce table face first, and it did not look pretty. It looked pretty brutal, and there was concern that he might have gotten a concussion. I know there was some officials who went over to check on him, and I haven't really seen any updates since, so hopefully he's okay, but that was not pretty. So eventually, Colin Jost and Michael Che get back into it. They come from under the ring, they get back in the ring, and the Hardy Boys, Matt and Jeff, are in a position to eliminate Braun. They tried to help, but Braun kind of fought his way out of it. He ended up dumping both Hardys. Colin Jost invited his therapist in the ring to calm down Braun Strowman, and Braun ended up beating him down. He got Michael Che over the top rope, slapped him hard as shit in the face to eliminate him. And Colin Jost tried to eliminate him, Braun that is, from behind, and it looked like it was about to go down. But then Braun got him up and flung him over the top rope into a sea of remaining superstars who were still out there after getting eliminated. And Braun Strowman, rather predictably, is the winner of the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. So there you go. Now on to WrestleMania proper. We had the host of WrestleMania, Alexa Bliss, come out, and she was talking about how she can make WrestleMania moments happen with the snap of her fingers. And after she snapped her fingers, out came Hulk Hogan, who got a huge ovation. He was mocking his faux pas from WrestleMania 30, where he called the Superdome in New Orleans the Silver Dome. So he called MetLife Stadium the Silver Dome, and he said, "I'm just kidding, I know the real name of this place. It is the MetLife Center." So in mocking a previous botch of a stadium name, he then corrects himself and calls the name by a wrong name again, thus botching a stadium name once again. So I thought that was kind of funny. But they were posing, he and Alexa were, and this led to Paul Heyman coming out of nowhere and storming past both of them and storming his way down the ramp into the ring. He got on the microphone and said that Brock Lesnar is upset that he's not going on last. So if he's not going to go on last, he will be going first. So he brought out Brock Lesnar, and up first was the Universal Championship match. Brock came out, Seth followed. He had the big Beast Slayer logo pop up on the big screen. And by the way, can I just say, the WrestleMania stage this year was awful. The screen was cool, I guess, but all it was just a giant long screen. And just 2 years ago, the WrestleMania 33 stage setup And you see that, and then you fast forward here, and you see what it looked like this year, and it was not good. It was just one giant screen that they showed stuff on, but yeah, not anything special. So Seth came out, and before he could really even get in the ring, Brock immediately attacked him. He just beat his ass up around ringside. Even gave him an F5 at one point. He tossed him into like the support beam under the ring. He tossed him all around ringside not into the German announce table, but one of the German announcers. So thought that was interesting. And then eventually he gets him back in the ring. The bell rings, and it's Suplex City, bitches. Brock Lesnar goes off and gives him a bunch of suplexes. He gets Seth up top on his shoulders for an F5, but then Seth weasels his way out of it and pushes Brock. Brock knocks into the referee, and behind the referee's back, Seth gives Brock a low blow, which he did on Raw the previous week. So he gave him a low blow, gave him a super kick, and then laid him out with 3 curb stomps to get the win. So Seth Rollins is the new Universal Champion. Hell of a way to start the show. I never would have thought it would go down that way, but as soon as Paul Heyman came out and said, we're doing this match right now, Brock Lesnar, he wants to get this over with, he wants to leave and go get out of here. I was kind of getting the feeling like, okay, this is interesting. And then before the bell even rings, Brock is just kicking Seth's ass. I'm like, are they gonna have? They're not gonna do that where they have Brock beat up Seth before the bell rings, and the bell finally rings and Seth gives him a stomp or something like that. They didn't do quite that, but basically they did. So yeah, Seth Rollins is the winner, the new Universal Champion. So great for him, and I'm sure as hell excited about that. So WrestleMania is off to a great start here. Up next was what was originally supposed to be the opening match, Randy Orton versus AJ Styles. They had a really good match. I was expecting something great, maybe even fantastic. I would say phenomenal, but I don't want to be too cheesy here. Plus, I'm too tired to be. But yeah, they had a really good match. Unfortunately for the people in the crowd, they couldn't see it all that well, because here we are at yet another WrestleMania, especially an outdoor WrestleMania, and with the way they have the arena set up, they have bright lights surrounding the big Tron in the center, right above the ring, and it was blocking and blinding the vision of a lot of people in the crowd, which prompted chants of "we can't see," "turn the lights off," and at certain points the crowd cheered really loudly, which made you think that they did turn the lights off, but then they would boo immediately again, and it looked like the lights still were on. And I think majority of the people missed this match, so there wasn't a whole lot of crowd heat to it because they couldn't really see anything. And at one point, Randy looked like he was getting pissed off that the fans weren't really paying attention to it, and they were just kind of cheering, doing their own thing. But it's like, you can't really blame them for acting that way because they couldn't see anything. So I don't understand why WWE does this every single time. They do this they did this a few years ago in Orlando. I was in New Orleans last year. I don't remember it happening. At least I had really good seats last year, so it didn't really block me all that much. But I don't remember it being reported that it happened last year. But yeah, it really sucks because it really hurts the match. But I got to see the match and I thought it was good. At one point, Randy did hit the RKO and AJ kicked out of it, but a little bit later on, AJ was on the ring apron. He was outside the ring on the ring apron. He was about to go for the phenomenal forearm, but Randy caught him in position for an RKO, but AJ managed to weasel his way out of it, pull Orton down throat first into the top rope. Then he got up, hit the forearm, and got the win. So like I predicted and like I figured, AJ Styles wins this match. Good, nothing great, but yeah, sucks for the fans that they didn't really get to see it. Up next, Lacey Evans came out. She was my pick to win the Women's Battle Royal, and she wasn't even in it. They saved her appearance on this show for a spot like this, where she just walked out there on the stage and walked right back. And this led into the fatal 4-way match for the SmackDown Tag Team Championships. The Usos defending against The Bar, Nakamura and Rusev, and of course Ricochet and Aleister Black. Fun match. Kind of all over the place at points, but really fun. Of course, Ricochet is in it, so you know he's gonna have a lot of really cool spots. A really cool spot we got from in this match was from The Bar. We saw Cesaro in the middle of the ring swinging Ricochet, giving him the Cesaro swing. And meanwhile, Sheamus was doing his 10 beats of the Bowerin or whatever it is, the forearm beating on people's chest. He did it to Rusev, and then Rusev eventually got knocked down, and then one of the Usos came in and he did it to him, and then Aleister Black a little bit after that. So Sheamus did that to 3 different people. Meanwhile, Cesaro was still swinging Ricochet the entire time. So I thought that was really cool. After a bunch of other stuff, there was a series of kicks towards the end. A bunch of people were using super kicks or Machka kicks. Black Mass we saw at some point, and then of course the Bro kick to Ricochet. And then the Usos gave Sheamus a double kick, and they gave him a double splash, and they got the win. So the Usos, one of the only champions on this whole show to retain their titles. Had the Hall of Fame segment, and that led right into Shane McMahon versus The Miz, Falls Count Anywhere. This was a fun match. I saw some differing opinions on this match on Twitter, but I thought it was fun. It was definitely crazy. Shane was forcing the ring announcer to do his whole best in the world thing, and then we get the match going, and Shane was running away from The Miz. He even went over to Miz's dad, George Mizanin, who was in the front row, and laid his hands on him again, and Miz went right after him, but eventually Miz got knocked down, and Shane unloaded his fake-looking horrible punches on Miz, and Miz unfortunately had to sell for it. And it's awful when we see heels sell for it. It's even worse when we see a babyface sell for it. But at one point, Shane had Miz laid out on the announce table. He went into the ring, went up to the top rope, going for his elbow drop, but then George came over the security wall and tried to protect his son. This led to him getting in the ring and squaring up with Shane. A very ugly squaring up, you know, putting up his dukes and all that kind of stuff. It was not pretty, but he tried. Shane went over and kneed him right in the gut and started beating him down, and that's when Miz got up and he went right after Shane and just started unloading on him. And from this point on, it was Shane getting his ass kicked all around ringside, even all the way into the crowd. At one point, Miz took a chair and bashed it over Shane's leg, propped up against a railing. He threw Shane through a table. At one point, he used a monitor. Like, they were on some, like, not really a platform, but like on up above a golf cart in the lower part of the floor. And Miz used a monitor. He used like a TV monitor and bashed it right over Shane's head. Shane goes flying over this rail, lands on a golf cart, and kind of bounces off of it and falls to the floor. So that didn't look fun at all. But it was only good for a 2 count. Shane kicked out of it. Fast forward, they're up on a very tall platform, and Miz hits the skull crushing finale, and Shane still kicks out of it. Now I sound drunk. I promise you I wasn't drinking tonight. This was just a long show. I'm tired. But Shane kicked out of the skull crushing finale, which Shane kicked out of the phenomenal forearm, or not phenomenal forearm, the Styles Clash a few years ago in his match with AJ Styles. I didn't like that, and I didn't necessarily like this either. But Miz was just so blinded by rage. They went up to an even higher platform. Shane got away. He climbed up to a higher platform. Miz followed him. They're both up there. They're way high up, and Miz suplexes Shane off of this very tall platform, crashing all the way down into a crash pad. So it wasn't that brutal of a landing, since you could see they basically landed on a big-ass beanbag chair. But, it was still a brutal move. But, with the way they landed, Shane was on top of The Miz. So when the referee counted the 3, it was Shane McMahon who got the win. So, the best in the world, Shane McMahon, gets his ass kicked for like 10 straight minutes. And after a big move from The Miz, it's Shane who gets the victory. So this will obviously continue the feud. I wonder if Shane will play up that he's hurt or something like that, and might use someone as a surrogate to continue this feud against The Miz. But obviously at some point Shane's gonna get his comeuppance. But yeah, this was a really fun match though. I would have preferred Miz win and perhaps end this feud now, but it looks like they want to continue it. So I had a feeling that Shane might win, but I thought it might be through interference. But I guess this works too. Miz was so blinded by rage and hatred and revenge against Shane that it cost him. So there you go. Up next was another Fatal 4-Way Tag Team match, this time for the women's tag team titles. The first time the women's tag titles are defended at WrestleMania, we have the champions, Sasha Banks and Bayley, defending against Nia Jax and Tamina Snuka. The Iconics, Billie Kay and Peyton Royce, and of course Natalya and Beth Phoenix, who had Bret Hart come out with them on the top of the stage and then immediately left. I thought he was going to be out there with them, but no. He just came to say hi. I'm okay after getting attacked by some dumbass fan at the Hall of Fame the previous night, but I'm still okay. This was just a match, pretty much. Paige, she was on commentary, so that was cool to hear her during Bayley and Sasha's entrance. And you know, Bayley has the inflatable tube men who were supposed to shoot up, and they didn't know it come up. Some of them were deflated, I guess, so that was pretty disappointing. But the match really wasn't much. Fast forward to the finish. Beth Phoenix had Bayley in position for a glam slam off the top rope, and she hit it, but then Billie Kay and Peyton Royce sneak their way back in, dump Beth out of the ring, and Billie pins Bayley to get the win. So the titles change hands here, and Billie Kay and Peyton Royce, the Iconics, are now the women's tag team champions. The stadium, I should say, lost it for them becoming the champions. There was a big, huge ovation for them winning. A lot of Aussie fans in the crowd, of course. I personally find them annoying, although I am in love with Peyton Royce. Ty Dillinger's a lucky bastard. But, yeah. Sucks that Sasha, once again, cannot hold on to a championship for that long. Even with a partner, she still can't. Two of them are the ones who fought for these belts to become a thing at all, and lost them just like that. So I'm sure they'll probably get them back at some point, but yeah, it is what it is. Up next was probably the real main event of this show in a lot of people's eyes. Daniel Bryan and Kofi Kingston for the WWE Championship. This is a story that WWE lucked into many months ago when Mustafa Ali got hurt and they needed to replace him with someone in the Elimination Chamber. They just chose Kofi, and on that first night in that gauntlet match, when he lasted the entire time all the way into the chamber and all the way up till now, this has been the dominant story on SmackDown and one of the top stories heading into WrestleMania this year. Of course, the crowd was major into Kofi, and we're dying to see this guy get the big win, and that really helped the match. This was probably the best match of the entire night. If it wasn't the Falls Count Anywhere match, it was definitely this one. This was a really good match. Great, in fact, with a lot of great stuff. Kofi, early on, he was on a frenzy, but it got cut short when he tried to dive out of the ring, and Bryan moved out of the way, and Kofi landed midsection, upper chest first, onto the edge of the announce table. So he was pretty much down from that point on, and Bryan dominated majority of the match. At certain points, Bryan did the finger pointing up in the air, and the fans were chanting no at him. So I thought that was really cool. That, yeah, these fans have completely turned on Daniel Bryan. He is the evil villain in this entire story, and I fucking love it. There was an SOS attempt at one point. They got flipped into a label lock, and it was a very close near fall, but Kofi, well, not really near fall, but it looked like Kofi was going to tap, but he managed to get a foot on the bottom rope. Bryan started his yes kicks. I mean, are they really called anything? The Bryan kicks. But it was just firing Kofi up, and he was getting fired up, and he was able to fight back. Later on the outside, Rowan, he took out Big E and Xavier Woods, who tried to go after him. But he ended up getting hit with the Trouble in Paradise, and then Ian Woods hit him with the Midnight Hour on the outside. Kofi gets back in the ring, walks right into a running knee from Bryan, and got a very close near fall. Almost jumped out of my skin on that one. Bryan then went for his pull the arms up and do the face stomps down on Kofi, which just sunk the crowd. They hated seeing that. He locked in the label lock once again, and it looked like Kofi was about to be done for, like he's about to pass out, but he willed his way out of it. He fought out of it, and then he got up and did his own stomps. So I thought that was really cool. And then he ended up hitting Bryan with the Trouble in Paradise and got the win. Got the clean 1-2-3 pinfall win, and Kofi Kingston is your WWE Champion. It was the only way to end this match, man. Any other outcome, especially Bryan winning in any capacity, would have been fucking awful. This was the best possible outcome for this match, and they did the right thing. Sometimes in these cases you don't know if WWE is going to do the right thing, and they did the right thing here. Like I said earlier, they looked into the story and they capitalized on it, and they went all the way with it. After the match, New Day teased they had a surprise for Kofi, and they brought back the original WWE Championship belt. The belt, the cow named Daisy that Bryan named it. They brought that back with Kofi's names on the plate, and E and Woods, they revealed new t-shirts that was just basically saying like Kofi's the champ or whatever. And Kofi's sons came in there. One of the sons, who was basically the star of the Hall of Fame the previous night, from what I could see, he was really getting into it. He was up on the top turnbuckle and all that kind of stuff, posing. At one point, Kofi gave his youngest one the belt to hang up. It was a really beautiful moment. Almost brought a tear to my eye. You know, been fully invested in this story, and to see it end like that, history. You know, this guy who's been busting his ass for 11 years, finally getting a singles match at WrestleMania, competing for the world title and winning. From a race standpoint, as a African American fan for basically my whole life, seeing the second, not first, second black WWE champion, because I count The Rock, but the second black WWE champion in history being crowned, the first black, or at least first African descent Grand Slam champion, which really doesn't mean much these days. All three members of the Shield are Grand Slam champions, so that's not really a big deal, but it was still cool. I'm kind of getting a little emotional again. I didn't full out cry, but it was really cool to see. And I don't know how much longer Kofi's going to hold on to the belt. For all I know, he's going to lose it on Tuesday this very week. But I don't expect him to have a long run. In fact, if I had to make a prediction now, he's probably losing it to a heel Money in the Bank winner at Money in the Bank next month. And on that night, that's my prediction. Either on that night or at some point not too long after that. Kofi as champion is not long for this world. But at least for this night, we can enjoy it. Unfortunately, as great as this moment was, it kind of killed the crowd a little bit. And the next match, you thought might be a come down match, but it was far too short to be that. It was the United States Championship match. Samoa Joe defending against Rey Mysterio. Of course, Rey injured his ankle on Raw the previous week in a match against Baron Corbin. So it was iffy if he was going to be able to compete in this match, but he did for all 30 seconds. He did hit the 619 at one point, but it wasn't too much longer after that Samoa Joe locked in the coquina clutch. Ray passed out, and Samoa Joe retained the title. So you could tell Ray was hurt. Well, I mean, you can't really tell, but you could tell they were trying to protect him. And yeah, sucks for Ray, but this was probably going to be the outcome anyway. So Joe, his first WrestleMania, and he wins. Up next, Drew McIntyre versus Roman Reigns. Roman had a crazy amount of pyro in his entrance for a match that really wasn't much. Nothing more than a real mid-card match. Roman sure did get a whole lot of pyro. People didn't know if the crowd was booing him again. Ever since Roman came back from the leukemia stuff, he's been getting cheers, pretty much. And I guess people thought that they were booing him here. It really wasn't that. There was really no reaction because this was just a standard match. There really was nothing special about this match whatsoever. And coming out of the Kofi stuff, there was just nothing they could really do to excite the crowd. So Drew, he dominated for the majority of the match, but in the end, Roman hit the Superman punch and the spear to win, which is exactly how I expected this match to end. I thought maybe Roman could get a fluke win, but we got the fluke win in the main event where it didn't belong. This should have been flipped. We should have got the fluke win here and have the clean, decisive win in the main event. But we'll get to that when we get to it. So Roman Reigns wins, and this doesn't really hurt Drew McIntyre in my opinion. He can still lay claim to a Universal Championship match, seeing as how he was the last person to pin Seth Rollins in a one-on-one match a few weeks ago. So there you go. Up next, we had the musical guest performance of Elias. We saw Elias on the screen with a drum set, and then we saw a different version of Elias on the screen with a piano, and then you see Elias in the ring live with a guitar, and the musical performance was himself playing 3 different instruments in sync, and it was very impressive. At one point, the lights went out, and there were lights in the crowd that formed his name, so that was a cool visual. And that was pretty much it, but you were just waiting on someone to interrupt him, and then they cut to this random video of Babe Ruth back in the day playing. They showed like an old Yankees Chicago Cubs game. I'm like, what's going on here? And then they showed Babe Ruth, and I'm like, the Babe Ruth of WWE. Gee, I wonder who's coming out. It was a person who I thought was coming out, but not in the way I thought he would. And we got John Cena, but as the doctor of thugonomics. He came out there, he did a rap on Elias, spat off some good lines, some very burial type lines, but I can't remember all of them. I didn't go back and watch them. Really? You expect me to go back and watch that after this long ass show? Seek it out if you didn't see it. It was funny for what it was, and it ended with John Cena giving Elias the FU. He called it the FU, not the attitude adjustment. So he laid him out, and that was that. Up next, we're powering through this, y'all. We're almost done. Triple H versus Batista, no holds barred. Shawn Michaels was on commentary. Batista had a Hollywood-like entrance, and he was escorted out in these big SUVs and all that kind of stuff. He did the whole big entrance, and once he got to the ring, he was getting in the ring, and he tripped in the ropes. It was very hilarious. I died laughing. He was in the ring for a little bit. Then he went on to the outside. He went over to look at Shawn Michaels in the face and kind of taunted him a little bit. And then when he went to go back in the ring, he slowly got back in the ring. So just a further example of exactly why I love Batista so damn much. Triple H, his entrance was kind of Mad Max-ish. It was looking like the Wasteland and some of the vehicles. He rode out on a vehicle. He wasn't driving, but he was in the back, and he had like this almost Mad Max-like attire on, so it looked cool. And yeah, so the match starts, and it's just a big brawl from the word go. Triple H used a toolbox to hit Batista with and had a chain, and then he found some bolt cutters, and he used the bolt cutters to tug on Batista's fingers. Looked like he was about to pull them out of their sockets, but he did no such thing. Instead, he pulled something else out of Batista. That sounds dirty, but it was very disgusting. He took some pliers, and with a chair kind of crushing down on Batista, he took the pliers and pulled Batista's douche nose ring right out. Now, it was probably a clip-on, but wow. It was almost as disgusting looking as when what was that, the Hell in a Cell match last year where Randy Orton put a screwdriver in Jeff Hardy's earlobe and twisted it. Yeah, this was pretty disgusting. Batista eventually came back into it though. He dumped Triple H on between two of the announce tables on the outside. Batista dumped him on them 3 times, and the table never broke, not once. Batista then got some steel steps, put them on the Spanish announce table, and was gearing up for a Batista bomb off of the steps on the table. Batista bomb to Triple H through the American announce table, but instead Triple H backdropped Batista over his head onto the table, but once again the table did not break. These tables were not playing nice with these guys. Eventually, Triple H ran across the Spanish and American announce table to spear Batista off the American announce table and clash right through the German announce table. So, a table finally broke. A little bit later, back in the ring, Triple H gets the sledgehammer. He was about to use it, but got hit with a spine buster and a Batista bomb, but it was only good for a 2 count. Then Batista was going for like a suplex. He brought the steel steps back in the ring, and he was going for a superplex off the top rope, but Triple H slid out of it and gave Batista a powerbomb onto the steel steps. Hit him with a pedigree. Again, only good for a 2 count. With both men down, out of nowhere comes Ric Flair, who comes out there, hands Triple H a sledgehammer, goes over to Batista and kind of yells at him and taunts him, and then when Batista turns around, he gets hit with the sledgehammer. Triple H kind of like jumped off of the steel steps and gave Batista a sledgehammer shot, hit him with a pedigree, and got the win. And after the match, he hugged and celebrated with Ric Flair. The match was fine for what it was, but you could tell both men looked exhausted and were gassed at one point. And the crowd was pretty gassed throughout it, and honestly, I was too. I was about checked out of this show at this point. It didn't help that the very next match was Kurt Angle and Baron Corbin. The match no one wanted went on as planned. Kurt's final match, his farewell match, and he hit Baron with all his greatest hits. The ankle slam, the ankle lock, hit a bunch of suplexes and stuff. At one point, Baron Corbin, when he was in control, he did the "you can't see me" motion, mocking all the people who preferred John Cena to be in the spot over him. And Kurt had Corbin down, and shaking my head just thinking about it, went to the top rope to go for a moonsault. A move Kurt Angle should have stopped doing years ago, let alone should be doing now. And like I expected, exactly like I expected, Kurt hits the move, Baron moves, so Kurt just crashes into the floor, gets picked up, laid out with the end of days, and Baron Corbin gets the win. So the guy no one wanted to see in this match ended up winning. Of course, I'm too tired to even be upset about it. Ask me in the morning after a long night's rest. Maybe I'll be okay about it then. But for right now, I'm just far too exhausted to be upset about it. Kurt Angle got on the mic and said his thank yous, play his music, chant "you suck" at him. His wife, they showed his wife, she was in tears, and they hugged and all that kind of stuff, and Kurt got a big send-off from the fans, so they showed him respect. They woke up temporarily to do that, and despite this not being the way I wanted to see Kurt go out, it was still cool. Kurt Angle, one of my all-time favorites, and definitely gonna miss him. Up next, we have Bobby Lashley defending the Intercontinental Championship against the Demon, Finn Balor, in his demon wardrobe. He started off hot. He was going right after Lashley, but Lashley took control and was dominant for a little bit of it. At one point, Finn Balor was on the outside on the apron, and Lashley gave him a spear through the ropes off the apron, but a little bit later, back in the ring, Balor was going for a powerbomb on Lashley. He was trying to wear him down to pick him up for a powerbomb, and eventually he did, and hit the move, went up top, hit the coup de grace, and got the win. So Finn Balor, once again, the Intercontinental Champion. No surprise whatsoever there, and that was about that. Then, because we just couldn't end the show yet, Alexa Bliss came back out. She announced an attendance of 82,265, and then brought out R-Truth and Carmella to do a dance break, which they did, because this is what we wanted to see. Ugh. But luckily it wasn't too long. It was longer than 7 seconds, like R-Truth said, but it wasn't awful. But at this point, just ready for the main event to start. And finally, it did. History in the making. The first ever all-women's main event in WrestleMania history. WrestleMania. Ronda Rousey, Raw Women's Champion. Charlotte Flair, the SmackDown Women's Champion. And, of course, the Royal Rumble winner, the man, Becky Lynch. Winner take all. We saw Charlotte. She arrived in a helicopter, and Ronda Rousey, she had Joan Jett perform Bad Reputation for her, and Becky Lynch came out, had her own regular entrance, and you could see her nipples sticking out of her wardrobe. Usually I wouldn't pay attention, but you know what, like I said, I'm exhausted, I don't care. It was at midnight when the bell rang and this match started. So this match officially started the next day. WrestleMania was a 2-day event here. The match was fine. It was fine. It was a good match. Probably the best main event of WrestleMania. The quote-unquote last match of WrestleMania. The best one since Brock and Roman at WrestleMania 31. But that's not saying much. At 32, the match with Roman and Triple H sucked. 33, Roman and Undertaker sucked, and 34 last year, Roman and Brock sucked. Unfortunately, there's a pattern there, but it was very different. It was very unique seeing women in the main event of WrestleMania, and seeing faces in general, none of which were Roman Reigns, or John Cena, or Triple H, or The Undertaker, or people like that in the main event. 3 completely fresh faces in the main event, and for that, they had a very good match. Everyone had chances to shine. Ronda looked like a beast at certain points in this match. She almost died at one point in this match. She had Charlotte in a armbar hanging over the top rope, and Ronda was hanging over the top rope, and when Becky went over and kicked her off, Ronda, and you could even see her face, she looked terrified when she landed. She kind of got folded up there. It wasn't too bad of a landing. She didn't get too seriously hurt, but it did not look good. At one point, Ronda locked both women in an armbar at the same time, but both Charlotte and Becky managed to power her up and give her a double power bomb. Charlotte, she had her little moments too. She locked Ronda in a figure 4 around the steel post, and even Becky, she had some cool things in this match too. The finish, which I couldn't believe we were gearing up for the finish, but the finishing, closing moments of this match were a table was brought in the ring. at one point by Becky, I believe it was, and Ronda knocked it over and said only bitches use tables. So the table's a non-factor for a little bit, but then Charlotte got it back into things, and she set it up in the corner. And by this point, she had already hit a double spear on Becky and Ronda, and it looked like she was about to go for another one on both of them through the table in the corner. But then they kind of flipped her over, sidestepped her, flipped her over into the table. But once again on this show, the table did not break. It kind of cracked a little bit, but it didn't really break. So, knowing this was some of the closing moments of the match, that was very disappointing. So, it came down to Becky and Ronda. They're fighting it out. It's like Ronda has Becky done for, and she gets her up, hits her, or is about to hit her with a Piper's Pit, but then Becky slides through, rolls up Ronda, and gets the pin. So Ronda is pinned for the first time ever in her WWE career, and Becky Lynch walks out as the double champion. Only not really though. This finish, in the short amount of time since I started recording, between the time the show ended since the time I started recording this, there's been a divided debate on whether or not this finish was botched. It certainly looked botched. It did not look like that was the intended finish. It looked like it was kind of rushed, and it looked like it was a mistake. Ronda's shoulders, especially her right one, was clearly not on the mat. But I wonder if they're going to play that up. They could just ignore it and kind of go past it like it didn't happen. It looked like they were trying to do that because they showed a replay, but they only showed Ronda's left shoulder, which was on the mat. They didn't show her right one, and they just kind of went off the air. They did the pyro thing with Becky, and the fans cheered, and that's how they went off the air. Becky Lynch is the new Raw and SmackDown Women's Champion. She is the true man of WWE, and we got our big happy ending, albeit drenched in controversy and not looking all that good, but Becky is still the champion nonetheless. So that was WrestleMania. I feel like I've been talking for an eternity, but only because WrestleMania has gone on for an eternity. But like I said at the beginning, I can't say I hated this show. I didn't love everything. I didn't love seeing Baron Corbin beat Kurt Angle, although it's what I expected to happen. Can't say I loved Sasha and Bayley losing the belts, but the Iconics win felt very emotional, so I can only be so upset about it. Becky didn't really win in a very decisive way, but she still won. Becky Lynch, Seth Rollins, and Kofi Kingston all walked out of WrestleMania champions. There were only 2 titles that were retained on this whole show, and all the other championships defended all changed hands, including the top 3 that I just mentioned, in a situation where people were thinking only 2 of them would walk out as champions, or only 1 of them would. All 3 of the babyfaces won. This was a babyface heavy show where majority of the babyfaces all night won. In fact, I think early on, all 4 matches in the kickoff had babyface wins, and the first 2 matches of the main card had babyface wins. In fact, the first 3. So this was a babyface heavy night. For what it was, Triple H and Batista, like I said, it was very groggy and it kind of slow, but it was what it was. I liked it enough. Shane and Miz had a fun match, and like I said, Kofi and Bryan had the best match of the night, with easily the best moment. On any other WrestleMania, you could have ended it with that, and that would have been awesome. And seeing how the main event of this show ended, you probably should have ended it with the Kofi Bryan stuff, but this was the right time to put the women in the main event of WrestleMania. And as far as that, did it live up to the hype? It was a good match. Nothing great, nothing fantastic. I said it was the best main event since WrestleMania 31, but that's not saying much. Considering the fact the last 3 WrestleMania main events have sucked. But yeah. And yes, the show was too fucking long. 7.5 hours is far too long. I saw a lot of people suggest on Twitter going forward how about you just start WrestleMania earlier in the day, you know? And I think that's a better idea. Maybe have the main show start at 5 p.m. from now on, and have the pre-show start like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Have a 2-hour pre-show from 3 to 5, and then have the main show start at 5, and 5 to later on in the night. End it by like 9 or 10 p.m. I don't know. But I'm all in favor of that. But yeah, so that's WrestleMania. Not a terrible show, not a fantastic show, but a good show. I'd probably give it 7 out of 10, maybe 7.5 if I'm feeling generous. But yeah, it was a solid show. Thumbs up for me. And that about does it for WrestleMania weekend for me. I'm probably not going to talk about Raw or SmackDown this week, but they are still coming, so the weekend is not completely over. But as far as building up to WrestleMania, it has come and gone, so we have passed that, and that's about it for me. I don't know what the next thing I'm going to talk about is, so I probably need a break from wrestling for a while, so it might be a while before I come back on here and talk to you guys. So yeah, like I said, that's about it for me. And for all the people who were at WrestleMania, hope you were safe. Hopefully you all get home safely and all that stuff. And yeah, that about covers it. So see ya.